Well, hi everyone. It's so cool to be back on Facebook Live with y'all, wherever you are around the world. Hopefully this recording lasts a little bit longer than the one I did with Paul the other day. I do apologise if you're live on that call or you've watched the replay. Tech issues, what fun. Fingers are crossed. And I'm looking forward to introducing my guest today, who I'm going to bring into the room in just 1 second. So today's talk is actually a case study with someone who has recently made the conversion to group teaching. She's been teaching for a number of years, and she's just made this big changeover. So we're going to learn about how it's happened, the good things, the bad things, some of the tips and ideas to help you if you're interested in doing the same thing. Of course, the reason why I'm focusing on this today is because this month is all about group teaching on both my blog. So many great articles coming out, and I've had some really fun interviews with people about group teaching. So if this does interest you, maybe you're already a group teacher and you'd like to expand. Maybe you're just teaching yourself and you would like to think about ways to grow your studio, and all the articles this month have been really helpful for you. Okay, so we've got a couple of people watching. If you are watching either the live or the replay, please do say hello and let me know where you're from. All right, my guest today runs an music academy called Fun Key Music in St. Louis, Missouri. She's been teaching for 12 years. She also has a significant blog for piano teachers. So a great resource there. If you're interested in finding out some really cool ideas. She takes a leaf out of my book with a lot of great resources for pop music, which I've actually shared and used with my students. So it's always good to have these things go both ways. A couple of little funny things I found out about my guest today. Her favorite artist is Jason Mraz. She likes Robin's Egg Blue. That's her favorite color. I didn't even know that was the name of a color. Fajitas are her favorite food. Her Disney movie favourite is The Little Mermaid. Can't say I agree with that one, unfortunately. And her favourite season is spring. Welcome to today's call, Heather Nanney.
Hi, Tim. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here. Absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much for being available to chat about the experiences that you've had recently. I'm really looking forward to diving in. So I think maybe the first thing to do is just tell us what was your studio looking like? Actually, no, let's take it from today. How does your studio look right now, and how long ago was it quite different, and what did it look like back then?
Sure. So right now I have 42 students, and we do weekly 45-minute group lessons. So I'm having groups of 4 right now, and they all come for 45 minutes a week, every week. We're doing the open air, so no headphones. We're all playing the same music at the same time. And just this summer, I did private before that. So for 15 years, I was a private teacher, and every 6 times a year, I had replaced private lessons with group lessons. So we were doing, theory games, and the kids got a chance to perform for each other. So it's quite a different setup now. And I've just been doing this. August 22nd was my first week of group lessons, so it's brand new to me. So I'm excited to learn. I have a lot of learning to do still.
And so you've only been going with the group lessons for all of 3 weeks or so now, is that right?
That's right.
Yeah, okay. So how's it been? Before we get into the, exactly how you did it, what's your current feeling about it all?
Sure. I am super excited. I have to admit, there was like a little bit of nervousness leading up to it. But once that first week came and students were excited to be in a group together, it was a little chaotic, having 4 digital pianos that they were all just ready to play on at the same time. So we're getting in a groove, but overall, I'm super excited about it. And I feel like it's definitely the right decision for my students and our studio as a whole.
Right. And so did you invest in a fair bit of new equipment? And how did you decide how many instruments to buy and what kind of instruments to buy?
I thought to start small would be good, so I could kind of get on my feet and learn about the best way to go about teaching group. I was nervous about having more than that to get started, because I know that you'll hear me say Marie and Deborah a lot. I'm referring to Marie Lee and Deborah Perez. They've been wonderful in helping me, but Marie uses hire some teens to help her. And so I was like, okay, well, I don't have that set up yet. So I wanted to be able to do it all on my own. So I thought 4 would be a great number to start with. And so that's how many digital pianos I invested in. And to be perfectly honest, I just bought whatever I could afford. I wanted them to be full size, weighted keys, and have a pedal. And like, if it met that criteria, I was buying it. They're all pre-owned, and I bought most of them like off of Facebook Marketplace, to be honest. So that's,
well, yeah, well done. I've had a number of discussions now with Deborah and Marie, and you were on our recent InnerCircle member mastermind call with them. And they all said, just start where your budget allows. You don't have to buy top-notch Clavinovas at $10,000 each and fill a room with them. Just start with what you've got. And so you've decided groups of 4 is a good number to start with. And so there's 1 student per digital instrument.
Yes. Yeah. And I've got
And so people can even split a piano between 2 people, because all of the pianos nowadays allow you to split and have 2 middle Cs in the middle of each half too. So there's plenty of ways to work it, isn't there?
That's right.
So what's been the hardest part for you about switching over to the group system?
The hardest part for me has been planning. Just not really realizing the amount of time that goes into planning for each lesson. I kind of, got into a routine of teaching private for 15 years that I, walking into a lesson, I felt confident that no matter what comes up, I can handle it. Or so now it's just getting used to the new format, knowing if I have one student doing something, I need to know exactly what the other 3 should be doing at the same time. So it's just a lot to consider.
Yeah, everyone who does group says you have to realize that planning takes a bit more time. You can't wing it when you've got a room full of little kids. It's exactly the same. I'm an ex-classroom teacher, and it takes planning to teach a group of 30 kids at once, exactly how that's all going to happen. So I totally get it. I must say, I also, from my own experience, while I haven't taught group piano, and that's why I love talking to you guys, because you're all much more expert at it than me, having taught in classrooms, I think, I'd be interested to know what you think after 3 weeks. I've always found instrumental private one-on-one lessons to be one of the most exhausting ways of teaching. That one-on-one interaction all day is really tiring. I actually found it easier to teach a group of 30 kids a classroom, because once you've explained something, set a task, you might have 5 minutes when you can just take a breath and walk around the room and see what people are doing. I know it's a bit different in a group keyboard situation, but is there an element of that for you, or is it still just like, oh my God, I'm just trying to keep up?
I think I'll get into a rhythm with this too, but you're right. Like, I think the students all being here energizes me. So I don't feel like I'm the one that has to provide, when the student walks in, if I'm not excited about this, they're not excited about it. But I mean, definitely, I'm not saying that I'm not when they come, but just the element of them all being together, I don't even have to say anything, and they're talking to each other and before class even starts. So I think it's great. So yeah, I think that they are helping me to not be as exhausted at the end of the day. I mean, it's still tiring.
It's tiring whenever you do a good job as a teacher, in my opinion, I think. Great to see Jill has said hello from Texas. We've got about 9 people on the call, so do just check in and say hi, guys, and let us know where you're from. It's always great to know who is watching. Okay, so what was the original trigger for you that made you decide to go, you know what, I'm going to go group?
Sure. Well, like I said before, 6 times a year when I was doing privates, I had replaced those lessons with group lessons. So we were doing like theory games, performance opportunities, and my students were craving more. They were asking me, when's our next group lesson? Or am I going to get to see Jack at my next group lesson? So I just felt that they're craving this social element. And then also seeing the little snippets of what Marie was doing, and I was just like, oh, that looks so much fun. Our kids are having a blast. And so then that kind of intrigued me to research it more. And then once I did, looking at all the benefits that students receive from group lessons, I was sold. So
that element of social, community, friends, mateship, that's really important, isn't it?
I agree. If it's okay, I'm gonna try to pull up a quote. I hope I don't mess up the camera feed. Is that okay?
What are you going to try and do?
Okay, I'm going to read it. Okay, so it says, there's this quote that I sent out to my families. I know we're going to talk a little more about that, but it says, humans have the need to belong, to be a part of a group of individuals who share interests and who come together for a common purpose. Such needs are as important to children and teens as they are to people in midlife and senior adults. In fact, it's being understood that is the need for connection that others may be the most important component contributing to a quality of life. And so knowing how much music is already contributing to that quality of life, now to add that social and connectedness as a part of a team, that really is important to me too.
Yeah, it's a great quote. And I think about it too in terms of us as teachers and our own professional development. It's why I'm really strong on the idea of community and bringing teachers together in a way to support each other. We all know it's great to set goals and write them down and commit to them, but to then publicly tell other people about those goals and have them help you and support you, that accountability can be really crucial. And that's why I've put together my forums and things just to allow people to do that. So, and it works for kids too. Kids in group are going to be motivated to practice and focus more because their peers are doing it, and they don't want to look, bad in front of their peers when it's their turn to play out loud. So, great quote there, Heather. Okay, so I would love for you to take us through the process, right back from when you first started telling parents that you were going to make this switch. What did you do? Did you email parents? How long a process was this, and how did it all go?
Sure. So I started about 2 months before I was switching over. So about the end of June. And then the very first thing I did was I sent out an email. I just said, we're looking forward to fall semester. After a long time of talking to other teachers and researching, there's going to be some changes. And I said, I believe this is going to be good for each individual student as well as our studio as a whole. And I'm going to keep you updated to what that looks like for, each family. And I just said, we're going to be moving and grooving to a new beat this fall. And so,
I love it. What a great quote. That's people use that one.
So I just gave him a little teaser, just to let him know, hey, heads up, something new is coming. And so from that point on, I tried to talk to as many individual moms as I could as they would come to lessons and just kind of fill them in, hey, this is what I was talking about. And I tried to start with the moms that I knew would be supportive no matter what I did. So that way I could, practice talking about it before I talked to some of the moms who maybe we're going to have some more questions.
That's a really good tip, actually. Yeah, to get a few on side who are likely to support you and have them, you could trial things with them. Mm-hmm. And also they would help parents too, I would imagine, or kind of nudge them.
Yeah. So I did that, and then I sent out...
Keep going. Sorry for interrupting.
Okay, no, you're fine. So then I sent out 2 more emails after that, just consecutively as we got a little closer to group starting. So then I pretty much just laid it out that said, okay, we're switching to weekly group lessons. And in that email is where I laid out a lot of the benefits. So I talked about, getting excited to play the music because they're going to be a part of a band. The sound's going to be fuller, more rewarding. Being a part of a piano team, motivated to practice, staying interested longer, and not getting the burnout that some piano students see. So I just listed all of the benefits of that. And then in the third email, I actually got this from Candace Crabtree, and she kind of went through this conversion last year, and she's allowed me to use the email that she used, and I just really love, she put a lot of heart and feeling into it and just why she went about it and just kind of tweaked it for myself. So I just asked her before we got on, and she's allowed me to share that on my blog. So that's going to be something I post. So if teachers are looking for specific wording, I know that was something that I wanted, then I'll have a post that's all about that. So you can just copy and paste what feels right to you and kind of tweak it for your own thoughts and students and do it that way.
Oh, that would be brilliant to share. So that's at, remind me of your blog address.
Funkeymusic.blog.
.blog, brilliant. Yeah, thank you very much. And isn't it great to be able to share these things? And I love that, she's obviously mentored you a little bit in how to do this. And we're just kind of passing on the love. I think it's great. It's how it should be. So how many people did you get pushback from, or maybe that even quit?
Oh, yeah, good question. So I had 2 who chose not to continue, which I thought that was like, I was okay with that. I was like, all right, I had to know before I was going to switch that I would be okay with whatever number said no. I was like, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to jump in, and, I'm not going to look back no matter what they say. So I had to be at that point, in my own heart before I started presenting it to the families. So luckily only 2 decided not to.
Which, I mean, that's must have been like less than 10% probably of your numbers.
I think it was something like 8. I did figure it up at one point, but yeah.
Yeah. Because I remember Marie, I heard that she lost 40% when she made the switch. So I think you've done really, really well. Obviously, the nurturing emails have helped. Yeah. No, nice work. So it was mainly done by email and obviously face-to-face. As you saw parents, you would talk to them about it. And then you pretty much said, when you come back after summer, this is the new way to do it. So you had that break, that time when I assume you did a lot of planning?
Oh, yes, a lot of planning. I went and attended Deborah's session in Corpus Christi, so I learned a lot while I was there. And then I did a studio makeover in that time as well. So it's totally crazy. I posted pictures on our studio Facebook page. If we have time, I might do a little peek around the studio if you want to see it. So I painted the walls, which is behind me. You can see that. You can see that. Yeah. I moved out couches, and my waiting area totally changed. So so some training, make the studio makeover. During that break. And
you had the room in your house to do this?
I took away my entire basement is now our studio, and before it was like a little room in the basement. Now it's just totally converted. So
right, okay, that's lucky, because I imagine that's an issue for a lot of teachers who might like to make this change. They might not have the space, and so they would either have to hire a space or extend their house or clear out a whole basement.
Yeah,
but that's an opportunity.
It's a lot. It took a lot of room, and we're just knowing that we're not on that list of rotating for hosting family events anymore. So
now, if you're watching this call, thank you. Firstly, do feel free to give us a thumbs up or a heart if any of this sounds like something that you would like to try out in your studio, or is fun to see them pop across the screen. And if you've got any questions for Heather about the experience that she's had in changing over just recently, please pop a question into the comments, and we're more than happy to ask on your behalf. Okay, so let's talk about the parent feedback so far. You've been going 3 weeks. What are they saying? Is there any difference? Are their kids practicing more? Tell us about that.
Sure. So I'm going to just kind of read some bullet points from, so they think it's a good fit. They're seeing an increase in excitement about attending lessons each week. Some parents are curious about how recitals will look now that we're in group lessons, and are curious if they're still going to get to play individual pieces instead of just as group selections. One mom says that she's loving it so far, and her girls can't wait for it to be their piano night. So I thought that was cute. Seems to be doing piano lessons much more because they're working with their peers, the active partners in a group, which compels them to do their best. They're enjoying the chord and pop style and seem to be motivated by the music itself. And then a mom thinks that her kids are going to enjoy it for a longer period of time, since there is that social aspect to it. So overall, I mean, yeah, there are a couple of concerns. Scheduling was one of them. I have families of multiple kiddos, and so I did my best to try to schedule them back to back. But some moms are having to make 2 trips a week instead of 1. So that's one of the downfalls. But can I read you a message from the mom that I would say that her kids have benefited most from group? Is that okay?
Totally, please do.
So here's this mom. I love this new group type of piano lessons because I've seen a total change in my kids' attitudes towards piano lessons. My 12-year-old daughter went from fighting me to quit to saying this is the most fun she's ever had at piano. She tells me she loves to get to socialize with her with girls her own age and play songs that they all like and share in common interest. It's been a great way for her to meet new friends. My 10-year-old son loves the fact that he doesn't have to do it alone. He loves that he's part of a group with a team name and loves to tell people their group name. The Mini Wheat Warriors is what their name is, and I'll tell you about the team names in a little bit. And she goes, that does sound pretty awesome to me. As a mom, it's been nice to see them feel responsibility to their group or team and fulfillment in their respective roles. They know others are counting on them to do their part, and I can see they don't want to let them down. Even though it was tricky in the beginning to get a schedule started, it is definitely paying off. I don't have to fight them to practice. They love it. So
wow,
that was kind of like the most awesome testimony I've heard. It's like, okay, that just affirms right there that that is what I'm doing. You know, that was the right choice.
Yeah, you don't get better feedback than that. Congratulations, Heather. That's really meaningful, and good on that mum in this case for actually taking the time to say that. I think that's really, really wonderful. So good job. Thank you for sharing it.
Oh, thank you.
Let's just talk briefly about scheduling, and there's a question that's come up regarding that, and a general talk about administration. How are you scheduling things? Is it kind of Excel spreadsheet or piece of paper, or have you got some software? What do you do?
Well, this first go around, I just did it all by creating messages, actually on Facebook, just because it seems to be so convenient for moms. And I would put every mom that was in a part of that group together and say, let's find a time that works for everyone. Since I didn't have anything on my calendar since I was starting totally new. So I had basically the whole week open and then just trying to fill times in from there. So it was a little tricky, but I mean, fall scheduling is always tricky. So I was actually surprised. I think I got lucky. I was like, okay, I'm just gonna like ask everyone to pray over the schedule so it comes together, and it just seemed to work out. So
that's great. So I'm just thinking, you had 40 students, is that right, before you made this change?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so now you've got, let's say, 2 dropped out or something. You've more or less got the same number. So we've got about 40, but they're in groups of 4. So that's now reduced. How long were most students' lessons before?
All of them were 30 minutes.
Okay. So you were teaching 4. I'm still here. Was that right? 20 hours?
Oops, I think, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So now you've got 40 kids in groups of 4, so that's 10 hours a week. If you're doing an hour, is it an hour group?
It's 45 minutes, but I leave 15 in between for some transition time.
Right. So you've halved the number of hours that you're teaching. Now, I know for a fact that because you're new to it, you're going to be spending probably the same amount of time preparing and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
But can you see an impact on the number of students you can reach in a week because you're seeing more of them at once, and the kind of income that you could potentially create for yourself?
Yeah, I think those are another 2 bonus things. Like, hey, feel like I'm at capacity with what I can do or what I want to do. I'm not. I've just made a choice for myself to not teach on weekends so that I have that time for family and just downtime. And so, yeah, I will have the potential to reach more students. And just talking percentage-wise, my group lessons right now are 85% of the cost of what I was charging for private.
Right. That's a great figure for people to be able to play with too. And I think when we were talking on our mastermind the other day, it was people were talking about that same figure. Although Deborah was like, it should be almost more because they're getting so much more from the experience. Anyway, so that's good to know, Heather. A question from Jill was, do you allow students to come to another class if they have a conflict with piano in one of their weeks, or have you perhaps not come up with that yet?
Yeah, that's a good question. Right now, I don't really have too many options. I have a couple of kindergartner groups that I'm starting in the same material, so they would have the chance to come to another's group. But right now, it's just there's not a lot of options. So hope maybe as I get more groups, it might become an option.
Yeah, it's quite hard when you're first starting, this is what I gather anyway from people, if you've only got 4 groups or something like that, then it's really hard to shuffle people around. But for someone like Deborah Perez, who has a music academy with multiple teachers and multiple groups, then it's much easier to shuffle people around. New people can jump in and that sort of thing. So, while you're getting started, Jill, I think, parents have to realise that there's only limited flexibility that you've got. Great question, though. Okay, so any tips now for teachers looking to change to groups? What would you say? You've just been through it. What would you do? What would you encourage them to do?
So my first tip is just to be sure that it's 100% right for you. When I started, when I was considering switching formats for this fall, I was thinking about doing the 20-20-20 or the rotating lessons that a lot of teachers are doing, and kind of having some groups and some in there. And as I just was sitting with it for a while, I was like, okay, that's not what I want. This isn't the direction I want my studio to go in. So all other teachers are successful with that. That's not something that I'm going to choose to invest my time in. But so this is the way I wanted to go. So during those hard moments, because there were a lot of them, and I was thinking, oh, what have I gotten myself into? I don't know what I'm doing. This is all going to be totally new. I could just stick with private and still feel as confident as I had before. That got me through it. Believing in those benefits that my students were going to be getting from it kind of carried me through all those times of doubting myself. So, and then as far as actual in the groups, setting expectations early and to let them know, what this is going to look like, what you expect from them. And also, so some things I did in the very first lesson are talking about what it means to be a part of a team. They've done teamwork at school or in sports. And so, doing their part, being a good friend, helping each other out, staying positive and encouraging one another, those same things apply when we're a part of a piano team. And so, so we talked about being a part of a team, and also I had each team choose a team name. And so I felt like this is kind of giving them like a sense of identity and community. So some of our team names that they've chosen are kind of fun. Then we have the Purple Pineapples, the Mini Wheat Warriors, the Legion of Dabbers. That's an all boys group. You know what dabbing is? Yeah, that's right. So the Super Music Girls and other things like that. So they've all kind of taken on that identity. So, I can just be like, Purple Pineapples on 3, 1, 2, 3, and they all get excited about it. So it's kind of
what a fun little idea. I've never heard of that before. I think that's great.
Well, that was fun. And then also fostering an atmosphere for teams to bond from the first minute they walk in. As soon as I had any student come in and they were waiting for all their other teams to get here, I'd be like, hey, find 5 things that you guys have in common with each other that's not related to music. So that just got them talking, like, oh, we like baseball, we love coding, we love to take naps. They're finding anything. So that was kind of fun. So they would get to know each other and just start talking right away.
I think that's great. And having some of those activities up your sleeve that just work with little groups to fill time, or, the power goes out or something, and, you just need some of those little games and activities that you can do. So my next question for you is, where would you recommend teachers go for, lesson plans, if they exist, or ideas for what to do in these classes? What have been your go-to resources?
Well, the first thing I would suggest is when Deborah and Marie's resources come out, get those. They have helped me so much. Deborah has a set of lesson plans for her adult method musical moments, and also in her teen books, which I'm using, some teachers were curious about what methods I'm using, and for my kindergartner and first graders, I'm using Road Trip from Piano Pronto. And then from second grade up through my high schoolers, I'm doing the Way Cool Keyboarding for Kids and then Way Cool Keyboarding. So in those Way Cool Keyboarding books, there's little tips at the bottom. And Deborah says those are not for students, those are for teachers. So I've went through and I've written all of those tips down, so I have them all in one place. And no matter what song we're on, I can use some of those teaching techniques. Which, can I just share what some of those are? Because I was going from having zero idea how I was going to get 4 kids to be playing the same song at the same time and the same rhythm, the same beat, and going to her training really helped me. So Well, one of the things is that she uses called team play. So she'll just break up. So for me, it's just breaking up. 2 students play bass clef and the 2 students play treble clef, and then we go through it that way, and then they switch. Or 2 students play lines 1, 3, 5, and 7, and then the other 2 are playing 2, 4, 6, and 8. So, you know, they're having different ways to experience the music without having to play the whole song at the same time. So then relay play is just going from student 1 to student 2 to student 3 to student 4. And I use that a lot. If I'm introducing a new song, I might just pick a simple pattern or like the main idea of the piece, and we're just working on that, and then they take the rest home. So we'll relay and just bounce back that little section of music. I think that. And trying to keep
a beat steady and keep the sound consistent and those kinds of things too.
Right. Yeah, and relay play is a great way for you to assess each individual student. So you can hear just one student at a time, but they're still part of a group activity. And another thing so that is nice, because that was another concern when parents first started hearing about this, is how is my student still going to get the same amount of attention that they would in a one-on-one lesson? So that kind of addresses that. And I'm always walking around and checking on each student while they're playing too. So, and another thing that Deborah recommends is to introduce a piece 5 to 6 times before they're actually sitting down and playing it. So that is a challenge in my lesson planning, but it also is a way to think, okay, how can we, just be hearing this piece and be conducting in the air, or play a game, some element of it, or doing some score study and looking at the music before we sit at the pianos and do it. So there's lots of ways to try to incorporate that too.
Right. Oh, brilliant. So I should go into a little bit more depth for those who are watching and don't know Deborah, this magical person, Deborah, who seems to know everything, what she does. Deborah Perez, and I'm very, very, very lucky to have her help us create our next Inner Circle training course and our webinar, which is all on group teaching. So she's pretty much one of the worldwide specialists in group teaching and teaching other teachers about it. So she's helped Marie Lee, and also Marie's helped Heather, and Heather's helped Marie, and there's a real community around it. And so what I've asked Deborah to do is help put all this down into an actual course, literally step-by-step module of all her best ideas and how to do it. So we're going to be launching that at the end of this month with a webinar too. So do stay tuned for that. That'll be the next big group teaching thing that I'll be doing. So stay tuned. It's going to be phenomenal, and the webinar is all about converting to group teaching, step by step, downloads, you name it, we've got it. So do stay tuned for that. And it's great to hear how helpful Deborah and Marie, for that matter, have been for you as well.
Yes, I'm so excited for that resource.
Yeah. Okay, so look, we're going to start wrapping up soon. So if you've got any final questions, if you're watching this, please do say hello, give us a thumbs up or a heart if you've enjoyed this conversation. And of course, please share if this has been of use to you and you have other friends who might value it. Please click the share button. Really, really easy way to spread the word about this and the amazing things that my guest here, Heather, has been doing. So Heather, I've got a couple of questions that I've been given from teachers prior to the call. So is it okay if I throw a couple of those at you and just see what you think?
I'll try. Yeah, let's do it. Let's go for it.
Okay. So Leah asks, I'd like help with convincing parents to try group lessons for their children. Even though I'm highlighting the benefits, I find I'm meeting with resistance. I suspect parents might think they're getting an inferior teaching method. Looking forward to hearing your thoughts.
Yeah, I would just encourage you to say that it's quite the opposite. That was one of the things that I struggle with too, is the exact wording. But just the same thing, if you believe it, if you're sold and you know that it's right, I think hopefully, well, it sounds like your parents maybe not quite feeling that way, but to just continue and just keep sending them that message. Deborah mentioned having to educate the parents, and just keep putting that message out there, and it is, you will do it, Leah. I think it will be great, and I will I'll help in any way I can, and I know that Marie and Deborah will too, but just keep educating the parents.
And as you've experienced, and as anyone making this shift will experience, there will be some people who drop off. I think I'd be very surprised if anyone's done this with 100% retention. And that's okay, because from what I hear, the goodwill you very quickly build and the talk amongst parents and kids and all that kind of stuff, you'll grow back again. So don't worry if a couple of people are a bit against it. Okay, so Christina asks, for group classes, I'm wondering how to attract enough students to fill a class of, say, 6. In the past, I have advertised group classes, but only managed to fill them as shared private lessons, so only had enough for partner lessons. So have you got any tips on the advertising side? How would you get bigger groups?
Yeah, word of mouth has always been my biggest way of marketing. Having a parent who is already on your side, who can speak for you. So if you haven't asked your parents, I would just ask them, hey, this is what I'm looking to do. Would you please, if you think of any other parents who might be interested in this, just send along my info. Have something typed up ready for them to share, so make it really easy for them, so they don't have to come up with a word. You're giving them what to say, but they can just forward it. A lot of moms are in maybe a mom group or a group at church, and my parents have always been willing to share any graphics or anything that I give them. So I would definitely use your current families who you've already convinced how wonderful you are, and just let them kind of spread the word for you.
And have a good website. Have a mobile responsive website, and have a page on there about your group classes. I think they would be some things that I would add to that. Have you made a point of updating your website for the group classes now, so you can send people to that place?
Me?
Yeah.
Well, you weren't supposed to ask me that because I quite haven't done that yet, but but it's coming. I mean, I had a place on there for group lessons before, just because it was a part of my private lesson offerings, but I haven't done that yet.
No, that's okay. You've been very busy and done amazing things, so I think you're okay. Last question from Liz. She's actually got 3, but I think we've answered a couple of them. So she says, where to have group lessons if you don't have a studio for them, and what kind of resources can be used in place of having multiple keyboards? What would you say about, you were lucky you've got a basement that you're able to clear out. Have you got or heard of where other people run these?
Yeah, I think there's actually a music store that I was considering doing this in, and they have a classroom that's just sitting there not being utilized, and I didn't know it existed even after having been in that store for holding some recitals. So even if you are not sure, I would just reach out to other music stores, and if they can see the benefit of having multiple students in there at the same time. They're going to be making 4 to 6 times as much if they're charging a percentage than they are off of private teachers. So it's a win-win situation.
Right, yeah. And better that than, be all squashed in one tiny little room in your house, perhaps, even if you've got to invest a little bit of the money. Two people can be on one keyboard, those sorts of things. Is there anything else you could use in place of a keyboard? I don't think there really is there?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe just instead of something full-size, and not have it be full-size right away. I know Marie did that, and she said that it worked just fine. So
yeah, start with where you're at, and you can always build as your income grows. And I know I interviewed Susan Ogilvie for a podcast this month. You must check it out, you and everyone watching. If you're in any doubt about the merits of group, she talks about keyboard ensembles. That's our discussion. So a piano band, Deborah calls it, getting kids to all play together, and all the different benefits that come from it. And she actually has created ensembles from iPads. So giving all the students iPads which are playing different sounds and things. So there's ways to do it. That's not a way to obviously teach piano, but it's another activity that you could use in the group context if that's part of your the mix that you're doing. So there we go. Thank you very much, Heather. I think, g'day, Sam's joined the call as well. Jill, great to have your questions too. Oh, Jill had one other question. Sorry, last one. How do you work in solo pieces? Do you do that?
That's a good question. I haven't done that yet, but I do plan on it, and I'm hoping that as we kind of get in a groove and a rhythm and group lessons, I'll have time to set aside to where each students are doing their own thing. We can look at the score together as a group, and each student can still learn from a song that they're not playing themselves.
Right. Yeah. Sounds like you've, I can't believe the amount that you've achieved in such a small time frame, Heather. Big congratulations to you, and the feedback that you've already got from parents. And I know you put some feelers out because you knew we were going to have this conversation. Thank you for doing that. But I hope that you've enjoyed reading them yourself as much as we've enjoyed listening to them. Sarah's just joined the call as well. Guys, we've got about 13 people live right now. If you do have any questions on this idea of converting to group, you've got like 30 seconds to write it in now, because we're going to start wrapping up. While I just check any final questions, I did want to mention that this time next week, I'm going to go live once more, not on group teaching this time, but on my way of planning piano lessons. So, and this could work for group, although I do it for individual lessons, and I call it my 3 keys method. And I'm actually we're creating a new download for this, and it's just a really easy way to structure lessons, because I made the mistake, and I'll tell the full story next week, I almost lost a student by simply trying to do too much with him in lessons. As you can tell, I've got a whole heap of great ideas. Well, I think they're great. And the biggest problem for me is actually not overwhelming my students with all the crazy, great fun things that I want to do with them. And I almost lost a student over it. So I'd like to tell you that story and how I now structure my lessons to avoid that. So it's called my 3 keys, and I'll be going live next Friday to talk about it next Thursday night. It's your Thursday night, isn't it, Heather?
It is, yes. I'm looking forward to that. That'll be good. I know. Yeah. Speaking of mistakes, I just want to say I make mistakes every class, and it's okay. And as long as we are, able to look at ourselves and learn from them, I think that's okay. Every time I'm writing down something, set higher expectations. They can do more, or put more movement activities because they got tired doing 2 songs back to back. I'm constantly thinking, what went right, what went wrong, and there's something that goes wrong every time. I mean, I know it'll get better, but just in the first 3 weeks, I'm just always like, oops, I could have changed that up a little bit. So
yeah. The kids don't know most of the time. I wouldn't right. So, and even if they do know, I feel that kids respect teachers who are trying new things, trying hard, learning themselves openly, and making mistakes. I think it's a good thing for them to see. We don't know it all. And if we do know it all, or think we do, then maybe we should try doing some new things. That's what I would say.
That's right. Yeah, when I had that talk with my students, that very first group lesson, I told them, we talked about respecting each other as a team, respecting the instruments, and respecting me as a teacher. And one of the things that I said is that, even though I've taught piano for 15 years, the music part I have down, but teaching it to 4 students at a time is something that is new to me. So I'm going to be learning along with you guys, and just like I'll afford you the opportunity to make mistakes, allow me to do the same thing, and I'm going to get better every time. So I let them know, that there's going to be a learning curve on my part as well.
Yeah. Well, look, thank you so much. And again, congratulations for all that you're doing. And thank you for being so honest and happy to share your experiences with us. I know that people will be able to find you online. Funkeymusic.blog is where Heather hangs out, and her academy is called Fun Key Music Academy, I think, right? Yeah. You'll be able to check it all out online, and definitely stay tuned for more great group teaching resources this month. We've got more articles coming up and a couple more podcasts, which were great fun to record. So do check them out. Thank you very much for being live on the call again. Give us a thumbs up, a heart, or even better, if you can press that share button to spread the word about this, I would really appreciate it. Thank you, Heather, so much. We'll sign off now, and I look forward to seeing you around online.
Thanks, Tim. Bye-bye.
No worries. Bye, everyone. See ya.